In my culture, the warrior with the greatest trophies command the most respect.
The film begins with a mercenary waking up to find himself falling with a parachute that won't open. Descending straight towards the planet's surface at high speed, the attached chute opens just before he hits the surface, sending him crashing through the tree line into the ground. When he wakes up, the former Special Forces Royce checks his surroundings to find the jungle unfamiliar. Another man crashes down next to him in the same way and naturally thinks Royce is his abductor, when a third dies on impact between the two of them after his chute doesn't open, which settles Cuchillo down. Suddenly the two begin to get fired on by a minigun from the tree line. Royce flanks the attacker and tells him very politely to stop shooting at them, saying that if he was his enemy he would have shot him by now, which Nikolai agrees with. The cartel enforcer was in Baja while the soldier was in Chechnya when they both remember being abducted by a bright light. Just then an Israeli sniper makes herself known, saying that she's visited most jungles but this one isn't familiar. Isabel directs them to where she knows more survivors have landed and joins them, while a fifth out-of-place survivor is shown following. Nearby, an RUF officer and a death row inmate are having a tussle when the group stumble across them. Mombasa promises to finish what the racist Stan started and the two join the stranger's company. They hear the screaming of another man hanging by his paracords and shoot him down. Unlike the rest of the hardened killers, Edwin claims to just be a doctor who was abducted on his way to work. During their hike, Stans has his eyes on the first woman he's seen in years, while Mombasa sees the well-dressed stranger in a trance. The Yakuza enforcer Hanzo indirectly joins the group as they all stare in bemusement at what looks like a giant boomerang. Seeing the remains at its base, Mombasa explains that in his culture the warrior with the most trophies gets the most respect. The group throw out their speculations, with Nikolai suspecting a military exercise, but they aren't all military. Cuchillo thinks like the cartel do, they've been kidnapped for ransom, while Stan suspects a government experiment like they've been known to do with inmates. The religious begin to think they're in purgatory, due to Stan's being scheduled for execution and most of them being at war at the time of the bright light, but Royce points out you don't need a parachute to get to the afterlife. He leaves the group to search for his own way to escape, but unwillingly becomes the team leader when they all follow. In the jungle, the doctor saves Nikolai from a plant with a neurotoxin that he almost touches, collecting it on a small scalpel and being told by the Russian UFC champ that he's got his back. Despite the terrain looking familiar, Isabel shows that the planet has no magnetic poles, while Royce points out that the sun hasn't moved since they arrived. Inside the thick jungle, they stumble across a crate and for some reason send the Asian dude to check it out, finding it empty and that there are also what looks like non-human captives in there with them. While searching for other survivors, Mombasa triggers a series of traps that releases a swinging log that Nikolai saves Edwin from. Thousands of spikes dropping from the treetops, spiked clam traps and a spike pit which Isabel almost falls in but is rescued by Royce. With no one taking the opportunity to attack them, they discover the engineer already dead, having made the traps in his last stand. The US Marine's been decomposing for 2 weeks and set the deadfall trap for something much bigger than humans, judging by its weight. As the team move on, Mombasa spots the Marine's transparent killer watching them but assumes he's just hallucinating. It's at this time they get to higher ground and realize just how screwed they really are, as no matter what they do they're still stuck on an alien planet. With the team now needing a bigger plan, Stans begins asking for a weapon better than a shank and rehashes the fight with the rough officer. Just then something begins racing towards them and reveals itself as an alien dog, so they put it down, but it's actually a pack of them and the unarmed members start to scatter. While he runs in terror, Isabel saves Edwin again with a single shot to a quick moving sideways target. Stans isn't so lucky and is run down, but after holding back its spiked exterior and shanking it a few times he's saved by Mombasa. The team begin to run out of ammo, with Royce defaulting to his machete, while Isabel plans to use her last bullet on herself when the creatures are all suddenly called away by a whistle. Nikolai had it easy the whole time, bringing them down with his chain gun until they finally left when he drags an alien back to the team. Royce deduces that the planet's a game preserve and they're all being hunted as sport, with the alien dogs being sent in like you would when pig hunting. Suddenly hearing Cuchillo's cries for help, they find him sitting in a field but deduce the situation to be a trap to lure them in. Without any other choice they leave him, but Isabella says that she can't as she feels bad for the begging man. Royce says that's on her and leaves, so she puts Cuchillo out of his misery. When he continues begging for help, revealing him to be long dead and his voice to just be a recording played by the same stalking alien. They follow tracks all the way back to a primitive hunting encampment containing dozens of aliens all strung up and harvested. One of the aliens is yet to be skinned, and when Nikolai checks on it, it wakes up angry, having just been captured. Noticing that Royce is missing, Mombasa is suddenly run through the back by an invisible spear and nailed into the ground. Royce springs out firing, having just been using the team as bait, and Nikolai joins, firing wildly into the camp. They begin to flee when the commando has his chain gun destroyed by the blast from a plasma weapon. Outrunning and avoiding the shots, they eventually all tumble down a hill and into a river, when an alien drone flies overhead and back to the encampment. revealing its owner to be the Falconer, the alien dogs to be the property of the tracker, and the Super Predator Trio's leader to be a berserker called Mr. Black. When the survivors make it out of the water, Isabel reprimands Royce for using them as bait, but he turns it back on her as he knows she's seen the aliens by the way she looked at the classic one. So she tells them about the survivor of a special forces team who encountered an alien in Guatemala, referring to the first 1987 film. The group decide to spread out and wait for another attack when Isabel asks Royce why he became a mercenary after leaving the special forces. He quotes Ernest Hemingway. "There's no hunting like the hunting of man, and those who've hunted armed men long enough and liked it never care for anything else thereafter." They begin to hear something approaching, so they decide to send out Edwin as bait to make himself useful. When the alien charges him, Isabel takes a shot and the creature drops dead, but it isn't their attackers and is instead another alien being hunted by the predators. Isabel notices that her bullet missed and something else shot the beast, when another survivor reveals himself wearing the alien's technology. Nolan has been surviving on the planet for 10 years and takes them back to an abandoned alien drill that he's been living inside. He's survived by scavenging what he can and speaks about a blood feud between the larger predators and the smaller species like the classic tied up. When Nolan mentions an alien spacecraft, Royce becomes interested and asks for its location, but is told that it was right next to them at the Pred camp but they couldn't even see it. He leaves them to rest for the night when Nikolai shows a photo of his kids to Edwin, and the creepy inmate shows a tattoo of his sister. Hanzo finds a sword from a centuries-old warrior, and with his first words spoken in the whole film says that his fingers were chopped off for talking too much. When everyone else is asleep, Royce tells Isabel his plan to free the classic predator in hopes that it will take him home using his captor's spaceship. They suddenly notice smoke entering and begin to wake everyone up, as the scavenger Nolan is attempting to kill them all and take what they have for himself. Having barricaded them inside, Royce attacks the side of the structure, creating noise to attract the predators. The tracker shows up alone and instantly kills Nolan after a decade of searching for him. The team take what they can from the supplies when the tracker begins bashing down a metal panel. It allows them to escape as the tracker prefers to get his prey alone, which is easier than you would expect as Edwin right away gets lost and separated from the team. With it taking too much time to get back, the rest of the survivors abandon him when Edwin's flare reveals that the trackers found him. Before it kills the helpless man, Nikolai returns, shoots the alien and saves the kid, but he covers Edwin until he can get to safety and is shot in the back for his troubles when he tries to catch up. The doctor leaves him and joins the rest of the team, just as the tracker gauntlet knifes Nikolai and picks him up. The heroic man reveals explosives taken from Nolan's stash and self-destructs, destroying himself alongside 33% of the alien threat. The rest of the team make it out, but in Stan's celebration he's shot in the back by a returning Mr. Black. As the Berserker's plasma cannon winds up on Royce's forehead, Stan's leaps on its back, doing more damage with a 4-inch blade than most military do. The rest of the team escape at the request of the brave man and he's thrown off, revealing body armor taken from Nolan's stash. He laughs at the embarrassed predator, as Mr. Black rips out the inmate's skull by his spine and is rejoined by the Falconer. Running through a field, Hanzo gives the rest of the team more time to reach the spaceship by challenging the Falconer to a duel. The predator accepts, and with the samurai sword from Nolan's collection the two fight, but the alien's much stronger, so Hanzo keeps his distance, running in for brief attacks and getting out. He's slashed across the back while the predator the stomach, and after a few more attempts finally finds a home for his sword in the Falconer's defense, landing a kill shot then succumbing to his own wounds. Almost at the campsite, Edwin steps into a bear trap, crippling him. Royce says they don't have the time to help, but Isabel refuses to throw away her humanity for life. Not agreeing with her sentiment, Royce leaves them both behind, reaching the empty camp and finding the classic predator still tied up. Not having a clue if the alien can even understand him, he trusts that it knows his intentions and frees it. Unhappy about how he was just dropped on his face, the classic predator puts on his confiscated helmet, gun and gauntlets and shows Royce a hologram of Earth, implying that he knows what he wants. Isabel helps Edwin to the camp in hopes that Royce won't leave them, when they both get trapped in a net and found by Mr. Black. The final super predator drags them back to camp and throws them in a pit when he discovers the prison break. Activating the spaceship for Royce, the mercenary makes a run for the spaceship while the two feuding alien species battle head to head. During the fight, the desperate Mr. Black shows no honor and starts using his plasma gun to try to get the win. Despite still having his own shoulder-mounted plasma caster, the classic refuses to use it and maintains his honor, but is demasked and defeated with a headbutt. The somehow even uglier species removes his helmet to roar at the defeated hero, before slicing his head off and ruining a classic. With autopilot enabled, the spaceship departs before Mr. Black can prevent it, so he remotely detonates it, figuring he can just hitchhike back to his yet-to-be-seen homeworld with another clan. Meanwhile, still trapped in a pit with Isabel, Edwin paralyzes her with the neurotoxin on his scalpel, rendering her unable to do anything but use her eyes. He reveals that on Earth he's a psychopathic murderer and is shunned by everyone, therefore he feels right at home on this planet among the monsters and doesn't want to leave. He's about to do whatever it is he does when Royce appears, having never boarded the Predator ship. After dragging them out of the hole, Royce carries Isabel away from the camp, all the while she's making eyes at him trying to send a signal. When he places her down, Edwin takes his chance to scalpel strike Royce, but the quick Merc spins around and drives it into his throat. Now with some bait for the Berserker, Royce uses the Predator's own trick against them and leaves him to be found by Mr. Black, who turns him over to be greeted by a belt of grenades from Nolan's stash, sending him flying. Royce, now covered in mud as mentioned in Isabel's story about the survivor, uses his disguised body temperature and the flames to disorientate Mr. Black while he pieces him up with a hatchet. While he's taking a breather, the Predator changes his visor to detect heartbeats, giving the human's cardiac heavy location away. Now utterly defeated and being toyed with for killing his friends, Mr. Black's about to land the killing blow on Royce when Isabel, having dragged herself over to her rifle, saves Royce with a chest shot but is winged in return with a gauntlet blade. Royce regains his feet and knocks the downed Berserker's helmet flying, before beating him into a bloody green pulp. Then with a final swing of the hatchet, successfully slices Mr. Black's head off in beautiful fluorescent fashion. Having recovered enough from the toxin to speak, the two survivors finally introduce themselves, having not shared their names the entire movie. The next morning, sitting in the smoldering ruins of the campsite, they observe the next batch of prey being dropped into the jungle around them. And the movie ends.
Spetsnaz, cartel enforcer, RUF, Yakuza, my FBI's most wanted, and him.
So you made it. I appreciate your time. I couldn't have done it without you. Tell your mother I said thanks.